we're just going to sort of like ease into here. One thing though I would like to point out is that originally a lot of the descriptions of what this panel would be include other artists, but it only really named me. That was because, yeah, there's a reason. That was because at the time that we were supposed to submit descriptions of what panels would be for PAX, we had yet to announce Savari Week. And so this was originally going to be pretty much just Savari, but since, don't worry, it's okay. Since then, and the Savari Week came out and everything like that, I actually have touched on pretty much every single race. So I'll be going through a lot, just to give you some background, I'll be going through a lot of the different kinds of cultural aspects behind the design of each race. Because I was the one that designed the clothing for all the other races, but then I designed the Savari race, but I didn't design their clothing. So, yeah, fun.
So this is one story, and the other story is actually Kristen is several character artists at the same time. She designed all these things. She's like working different computers at the same time. She has a mind that is separated into different worlds, and she creates all these things. So she makes people believe she's different artists. But now the truth, everyone knows the truth. She's only one person. You're gonna get all of them now. She's going to probably give a presentation on art, and we're going to call for questions at the end.
Yeah. So, I mean, since this was originally going to start at 4, but we wanted to make sure that that people could get in here and sit down, since, I mean, you guys were early. I'm just going to sort of ease into this. We got about 20 minutes, just in case, you know, late covers come in. And hi, I'm Kristen Perry. How you guys doing? So all you guys here are specifically for, like, you know, what you want to know about the character design. Is there anything in particular, not to get into Q&A, but like broad categories that I might be able to try to focus some of this discussion with? So I've got like NPCs and a lot of their clothing, so that covers a lot of the cultural aspects itself. You know, what they feel like when you walk into a town, what you feel like when you're dealing with the NPCs, the merchants, and so forth. I've got a few of the armors that I've designed for the world, and then we've got the Savari talk. So, yeah, you first.
You're saying that you had different races that you were working on?
Yes.
So can you maybe go into how different kind of, you have nobles, merchantmen, kind of common folk, and then the poor people. Would you go through each different race and kind of say what each might look like?
Yes, that's all in there. You had a question?
Yeah, I've actually been trying to fill this up for the portfolio review tomorrow.
Oh,
So
yes.
Fan art. One of the things I came across for the Norn is I was going to do a Norn necromancer, but the ideologies kind of clash. Did that ever come up when you were like designing the characters, where the background of one race kind of would work with a job class that you might do?
Actually, yes. So I will get into that because that does actually follow suit in a couple of the races. So if I don't touch on that, remind me again, okay? Does anybody else have broad categories?
I would just like to know if there would be any cultural or racial armor variants.
Variants.
Say like the charm may have chainmail, but it may be towards more their race kind of design.
Yes, well, there's two sets of different kinds of armors that you would have for any of the races. There's going to be what is considered the cultural armor, so it's something that they would have developed themselves, their art aesthetic, you know, their evolution of what these the function of this armor would be. But then there's also world armor that every race can wear. So you will be able to, you know, wear something that, you know, every char will be able to wear this particular plate mail armor that's world armor, but then only a char could wear this heavy metal armor that's specifically to their culture. So we have sort of both in there, but you wouldn't really have like a world armor that when you put it on a char turns char-like. That's not going to happen. So
the world armor then would match within the context of a guild or something then? So like larger characters and smaller characters with the armor basically look the same except scaled for their bodies?
Yes, which does kind of match with some of the proportions too. So I mean, the Asura were fun. We're trying to. They have itty bitty little torsos. Do you guys realize this? And then they're all legs. And they're short, stubby legs, but they're all legs. So yeah, and then we would have, you know, like categories of like the German priory and stuff like that. You know, we have categories of things that would happen as well. But yeah, it does. You know, we're trying to cover just about everything. So as we're getting stragglers in, once it gets about 10 of, I'll start talking for real. Anybody else have any brother? Yes?
since the dye system is changed, so your colors carry over to your next set of armor, can you like not switch colors?
Okay, that
Like
I might have to have Regina update. So, it doesn't necessarily. You can choose to save it in a row of favorites. And in that, you can reapply to whatever our next armor. That doesn't mean like, you know, okay, slot 1 is always this red. That doesn't mean like every time you put on a new set of armor, it's going to dye red. So you have the ability to save your favorites, and you can then apply it without having to go through all 400, although I'm going to make it easy to find those. Hence, you know, names, but also, you know, sort categories and everything else. So hopefully, you had one? Yes?
I was wondering, you said that for the armor, there's 2 different sets, the sort of the world armor and then race-specific armor.
Yeah.
Is town clothes going to be like that too?
Well, all town clothes, well, most town clothes, most town clothes are going to be race specific. So, I mean, when you walk into the town, you don't necessarily want to see, you know, Humanville when you're in Surland, unless it's specifically a character that's supposed to be more human-esque. So yes, I mean, we want to make sure that whatever area you go into does feel like that race, and that does feel like their environment and everything that they grew with. And so we will definitely have, you know, it's going to be more cultural specific, but there are some kind of outfits that you would be able to wear that all races can wear, but that's larger categories. That's not necessarily town stuff, so it's different stuff.
I love the Silvari redesign.
Thank you. I had fun. Thank you. We'll get to that. Don't worry. You saw the folder. Okay. So, yeah. Any other broad categories? Because I've got this whole spiel in my head, and I talk really fast, and I've been screaming over like loud booths for a few days. So if I sound froggy, I'm sorry. And we'll just kind of go from there. Anybody? Yes.
Hairstyles and accessories.
Yes, but not exceptionally my department. I mean, I'm.
Well, just in the case of, I'll just say with fashions.
Yes.
How
Yes.
maybe wear their hair.
I mean, there's a bunch of different hairstyles to choose from, and a very talented young lady named Susan Jessup has been contributing to most of those. In fact, she's the one that was actually doing a lot of the Silvari designs. I did like 3 of the hairstyles for the prototype of it, but then she really supplemented, and you know, she's been, you know, integral on Norn, on Human, on, you know, you name it. The girls.
I should be more specific, like with the armor, the headgear pieces.
Helmets still replace hair. But we try to make it so that it's sexy and that it doesn't look weird. But given the way the template system works, there's no room. So yes.
Just a quick little question.
Sure.
So can you hide your helmet by any chance? If I know it's not really your department, but so you can just show your hair.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. I haven't tried.
Repeat the question.
Oh, nobody can hear. Can we hide our helmet? I believe so. I haven't tried to do that lately, but I wouldn't see why they would take it off. So no problem.
From a fellow artist perspective, kind of want to know how like research works for you, because I know research is the most important thing. Like, how would you like knock out really ideas that won't work and ideas that go through, and etc.
Remind me of that at the Q&A section afterwards. That's a really good thing, but it'll tie into stuff I got.
I was just wondering, how did you deal with the basically chainmail bikini syndrome when it came to female design?
Woohoo, chainmail. Okay, so I would like to set the record straight. A lot of the stuff that we got yelled at for GW1 is women's fault. Okay, we designed it because we liked it and we thought it was sexy on them. So this whole chainmail bikini stuff that, you know, when the higher end armor might actually be, you know, half naked, we liked it. No, we tried to make sure that there's something for everyone, because we know there's people who want to be sexy and all red Sonja and stuff, and then there's going to be people who want to be completely covered and practical and badass. I mean, I can say that, right? Yes, I can. Okay, badass. That's one of our monikers here. So yeah, we definitely try to give, you know, a whole big variety for everyone that can do that. But for the design of it, I mean, basically our first vision is that we want to make it look really cool. We want to make it look good, and then we want to make it look functional. And however those two things go together in that particular design is usually, it's up to the individual artist. There's more than just me designing these. We've got an entire team, and then even the concept art team who can also, who also design a lot of the outfits. So it's really a collaborative effort, and it's whatever looks good to the, whoever is working on it. And it gets filtered through. I mean, we have, my lead and everything like that makes his judgment call on what goes in. So long as it fits with the game, so long as it fits with what the purpose of that armor is, it all goes together. But yeah, we have a variety. We make sure.
Is the crafting, with the crafting in the case of the armor, is it racial? Like, let's say in Ashura,
is the crafting racial?
Like, if an Ashura makes a robe, pieces of an Ashura robe, or is it overall?
More than likely, well, I mean, so we do have the culture armors. I don't know 100% how they're handling a lot of the crafting when it comes to any specific look. So I'm going to say I don't know. I don't see, if you can craft one thing and you could craft another thing. I mean, if it's a world armor, it's going to look like a world armor. If it's a cultural armor, it's going to look like a cultural armor. So logically, I would say that, but I don't know for sure. Yes?
Going back to the hairstyle, are you going to be able to change it after you create the character?
I do believe we would be able to change it just as we sort of were in GW1, whether or not there's like some in-game function, or whether or not it's additional hairdresser. That's not something that I touch on. I'm not in control of everything. I want to be, but I'm not. Actually, I don't want to be in control of everything. That's way too much work. So, yes.
To touch back on the
female bikini chainmail. Yes.
Yeah. Do you think that in Guild Wars 2, are you working on a equal opportunity?
Will the guys be sexy too? That's the question. Of course they will, because we like looking at all sorts. I mean, it definitely. Whether or not any design would look just more effective, I guess is somehow to be able to say with the design stuff is that if it looks like it's a little strange on the male, and Conan can get away with a lot with just a loincloth. He really can. But sometimes, how the spikes go on, or how the plates go on, it doesn't look right unless it has supporting other pieces to the design. So it really just goes back to how we want the design to look overall, what's the cool factor. And yeah, we try to make sure that there's equal opportunity. There are several, human designs, there's several Norn designs, I mean, across the race, all the races, is that we're trying to make sure that there's a variety of options for the guys too, just as well with the girls. If the girls want to be covered up, that's great. If the guys want to be covered up, yes. Whether or not the proportions are quite the same, where you have as many half-naked guys as you have as half-naked girls, I'm sure you'll be able to find out whether it's in the same set. We try to keep it, reasonable within the same set. But if the design really doesn't read well, then yeah, we'll make it look cool first, and then go from there. So let's see what time we got going. Collection of things that did not make the cut. So you can see how fashion, one day you're in, one next day you're out, does happen at the office as well. I'm a big fan of that show. Well, it's amazing because it's kind of like what you're doing as a dev, as a character designer. You're given this project, you're given a limited amount of time to come up with something absolutely awesome that everybody's going to want. And good luck, because here's 2 clothespins and a cucumber. And just go. Like, okay, but make it orange. But the cucumber's green. We don't care. Just make it work. I'm like, oh, okay, we can do this. So I like seeing what they come up with. 5 minutes. Tell the door. Yes. Okay. Anyway, so starting with the NPCs, if I got my mouse here, let's start with the humans. If I can read from the side here. So here's pretty much a lot of what was going into the human design, and this is probably one of the oldest things that's in the game. It started out with trying to come up with their town clothes, and we had various ideas of what these things would be. Nobility, or whether or not it was town clothes. Whether or not the text doesn't necessarily relate anymore, guys. These are old images, okay? So just a disclaimer. So in designing a lot of these outfits, I know you've probably seen a couple of them. I think you've seen her. She's been in a lot of screen grabs. You've probably seen her. Big old coat guy. And originally we were making all of these things so they really would kind of hot swap with a set limited amount of design items to go with it. Like, for example, we would have maybe 3 sets of different kinds of clothing, gloves, or just these boots that. And as a whole entire block, I had to make sure that all of these outfits, when they're swapped with each other, all the pieces actually look good with each other. So the way that you sort of break this down is that you deal with silhouette as the primary function. I had to make sure that when you have these outfits in a crowd of just NPCs as they're walking around, it actually does feel enough variance, enough variety that it is convincing that there is so many different people. And one of the ways that you do that is with silhouette. So if you notice in the top row, we have long sleeves that are square. We have tight at the wrist and at the forearm. We have flares. We have different kinds of length here with the legs and so forth. All different sizes of the skirts and the coats. If I did one coat that had with the sleeves had flouncy if the sleeves were flouncy, then I made sure that I also had a coat that it was tight to the wrist, and so that this would create a lot of visual variance as they mixed and intermingled with each other. Same thing with the accessories, the boots, the pants, the gloves, and so forth. If it was going to be a low to the ground shoe, not only did it have to make sure that it read well with any outfit that it would be paired with, but it also would be a lower silhouette and a lower function than some of the other items that you would have there. And in this particular case, we were also trying to make very good use of like the cook versus the blacksmith, as it was with the humans. They are actually a texture change. Because once you get, an apron is an apron is an apron, whether it's made of leather or whether it's made of cloth, it's still going to be functional. But I made sure that they had a little spatula, and these are actually in the game. They're really cute. I love details. And same thing with, as you can see with the hats. I think all of these are pretty much made. I don't think the nobility ever got it, but to make sure you have a really nice sort of like musketeer hat, a Robin Hood hat, everything like this. I even wanted, a little bit of a witches and a wizard's hat, but I didn't want to go strictly costume with it. I wanted to go like actual practical that they would use for fashion for that. So it's a little bit more demure, but it still has a lot of really rich texture. And so really being able like this, that iridescent sort of pheasant feather and so forth. And we really tried to make sure that all of these materials read well. This one's actually, I think this is velvet here, and then they made it so that it's this really, the guy who made it did really well. His name's Ken. He put it together, and it's like this tempered suede that's got some wear marks on the edges and on the seams and so forth, and then the jewels really read well. And so all of these details go together in order to try to make a convincing sort of design aesthetic that everybody would believe, yes, this is what this culture grew, this is what this grew up to do, this is what they designed, this is what their thoughts and their thought process as a people, what they would aesthetically be drawn to. So for the humans, we were trying to get to a little, it wasn't so much Renaissance or it wasn't medieval as it used to be in GW1. We actually moved more towards a slight Renaissance, but I don't like just strictly Renaissance. I like bringing in details from just about everything. So I got a little gypsy in there, I got a little Tudor in there, I got a little bit, I go all out because I think variety is the key, and a lot of different cultures have just really more interesting silhouettes than if you stick to just one, vernacular and one formula of design. So from here, from the humans, I actually went into now the Asura are great. They're awesome. And oddly enough, they really look good and on pure waist. If you put the waist of the Asura actually where their belly button is, they kind of look lopsided. And they run even, they've got this cute little run, but when the waist is, it's like you kind of want to follow behind them and pull up their pants all the time. So it's like they really, just their proportions, just the way that their anatomy works, it was a whole lot more aesthetic to be able to kind of gracefully drape it off of their raised waist. And for them, their aesthetic is sort of like a magic futuristic version of Art Deco. And so a lot of the lines that I tried to put into this race, we're going to give nod to that. So they are very clean, they're very straightforward, they're very functional, but it's also, they've got flair because they've got egos that are, disproportionate to their size. And so one of the things that I think you had a question about whether or not some races would have, a design would actually kind of go contrary to what the race required. And in this case, yes, the Asura are very egotistical. They value the abilities and their knowledge above all else, and to some extent their fame. And so to do a poor Asura or a peasant or a lower class, I mean, that necessarily that doesn't have anything to do with finance. That has everything to do with their intelligence. So that's count dunce maybe. Middle class, same thing. It's just how many papers have you published? I mean, what's going on? So to come up with that, it's like the working class and the lower class reads different in this race than any other race. The working class, I mean, they don't really have blue collar also. Basically, I mean, if you look at the farmer up there, he's got, I'm really trying to get these glowing gloves in here. They're basically just magic gloves that this guy has invented. But his job of a hard day's work is to go out to the edge of the field, kind of like crack the gloves on, and then order the golem to do all the work. But, it's like he's working class, right? I mean, some people don't have to order the golems around if they don't want to. So this would be an example of how this design, I have to take these kind of details into design. They don't really have trashed or ripped up or any kind of, old fabric or any kind of stuff like that. They all have, well put together outfits, but it does have to still relate to what their culture is and how that's going to read. And their culture, like I said, is all about, creativity and the scientific accomplishments, their intelligence, and their fame. So we're here. Yeah, and how I also in designing this, I really wanted to pay close attention to how things would relate to their environment. I mean, their cities. They have these wonderful, geometric cities with all this wonderful Art Deco detail and glowing magic everywhere, glowing lights everywhere. Well, I thought that would be, that's a shame if I can't get somewhere onto their outfits. And so, as you can see, for a lot of this, if they have, the upper class, the one that has probably the most notoriety and fame, a lot of this is just suspended on him just as much as any of their cities would be, and their monuments and so forth. Any of this hat, the jewelry, it's also suspended there. They have the technology. Of course, they're going to make use for it. That's the cool bling stuff. Show it off. And well, he doesn't have any because he's not famous. And so, I really tried to play into this. And, a blacksmith, I mean, what's better than, a flaming glove? Still working on it, trying to get that in. But, just in coming up with these ideas and trying to design around the culture, I really wanted to pay attention to what the lore was going to do. I really wanted to tie into what their environment was, because this is what they're using. They're going to be standing right next to the buildings. They have to relate. This is how the culture grew. This is how that they, they developed what their aesthetics were and what was important to them visually. So after this, I thought that was a lot of fun, and it was really cool to have some really nice clean lines. And then I moved on to the Norn. And I thought that the Norn were going to be incredibly, they're very straightforward. Their points of view for life is that they're all about the individual accomplishment. So it's not necessarily about fame, but it's about a matter of pride. It's about a matter of honor. It's about, the thrill of the hunt and how brave they have been. And here's another example, because their race, they don't really have so much as an individual. You have merchants and you have people who have a particular trade, but every Norn is sort of an individual. Every Norn is a little bit of an island. I mean, they're not a community so much as they are a bunch of individuals that like hanging out with each other. And so in order to bring in some of this design, I originally started. Let's see if I can find the old one. Let's see. It's very hard to read sideways.
That's a Norn.
Yes,
What does it say after it? Sketch. Okay, we don't want sketch yet. And that's compare. Okay. So we want Norn or 1. So, I don't know you want sketch. We can do sketch too. I'll come back to that to get you some. It's a big file. So in designing a lot of, no, I was right the first time. Never mind. Forget this one. This is where the trouble came in because the Norn got infiltrated by the chart. Believe it or not, we'll come back to that. In designing the original Norn, I had come up with all of these sort of designs, and remember, these are all individuals, so these are craftsmen. This is their profession, and they're very proud of this. So anything that they do is going to be handcrafted, it's going to be decorated, it's going to show, you know, their pride in what they are doing. If they're going to be a scholar, they're going to have the best and the most impressive kind of scholar gear. It's not going to be tattered just because they're living off of raiment. It doesn't happen that way, you know. We also had, you know, again, the text, this is old text, this is a couple years old, we don't really have these particular trainers anymore. But, you know, for coming with farmers and for coming with fishermen, these would be people who are very self-sufficient. These are people who, that they take care of business, they know exactly what they're doing, they're experts in their field. And so it's not necessarily that they would have anything poor per se, but it would probably be very well maintained. It would probably be, you know, there might be some things that were handed down from their father or their forefathers, just because, I mean, they would care for such heritage. Again, accessories that I was trying to make use of that would also look good on male and female, which is really interesting to try to design unisex pieces. That's to make it look sexy on the female, but still not look like he's wearing a lady's hat. Takes a little bit of doing for here. I went for the nomadic sort of tribal thing. Now with the Norn, what we have here is a lot of fine attention to material, to detail, and they like to decorate this. So it's a lot of hand-tooled leather. It's going to be a lot of intricate metalwork. And as you can see here, for some of the original designs, for their shaman, this would be part. So consider these their religious scholars of sorts, their priests and so forth, which would be the ones that would introduce you to their different totems, which would be, you know, bear, wolf, leopard, and raven. Thank you. I really wanted to show that, you know, they had pride in these and reverence to these animals. Came up with some interesting side effects for that, which I'll bring into more. Originally, I tried to be a lot more involved with what the raven was going to do. It's covered with feathers and everything, and a very, you know, straightforward beak and so forth. Actually got a little bit more sort of Aztec with their designs, but they started looking sort of like a black big bird. And they just exploded with feathers everywhere, and I was like, okay, no self-respecting Norn would be dressed like this, so I had to go back and rework with. But this was the first group of designs that happened for the Norn, and this was what was going to be what we would see wandering around their towns, their cities, and so forth as the merchants and the various different kinds of trainers and NPCs that you would speak with. Now from here, I actually moved on to the Char. And the Char are feisty. They have a little bit of trouble. Let's say sketches. Notes. Okay, we'll get back there. Originally, this is okay. So one of the things that happens in the character department is that we're a little bit different than the concept department. We actually do kind of exist on an island ourselves. We can concept, we can design all of this, and then go and build it and get it into the game and get the assets there. The concept department also does design a lot of characters, but it's usually when we specially request something from them, or we're kind of swamped with all the stuff that we need to do. They take off some of the load and be able to give some of a lot of the cool designs that you would see. But originally, in order in the character department to design some of these things, it's best, and you saw this on the humans, you see this in the Norn and the Asura, to design in something called zero pose or no pose, where they stand up straight as you would have the very basic body type, the body mesh that you build from, in a very straightforward way, and you would see the front view, the side view, and the back view of this. this makes it a whole heck of a lot easier to build the model from than it would be to actually have, you know, something that's dramatic and concept art and you know, wonderful, these wonderful graphic poses that have a lot of character and a lot of wow factor and a lot of inspiration, but it really doesn't communicate exactly what the proportions of that armor or that outfit are on the body. So to actually make it as a production artist or as a modeler, it takes longer, and it's even, you know, a little bit more thinking power in order to try to translate what you're seeing there into something that's viable in 3D space. So for years and years and years, that's why one of the reasons why you would see all the armors and you know, sort of a boring pose is because, well, we needed to build that. And so as for anything else, as soon as I got through the Norn and the Asura and the Human, I started designing Char in no pose. They never stand up straight. Have you ever noticed this? I mean, yes, there's so many, okay, yeah, I know the caster is over in Udemy. Okay, we're not talking about them. We're talking about in the actual game, they're always, you know, just about ready to rip your throat out and hunched over and everything like that. So an interesting side effect happened that you don't really see their chest. Everybody else, every other race, you see their chest. That's pretty much, you know, one of the glowing areas of detail. You know, you might have this really intricate design that's on a Norn. You might have something that's, you know, this wolf's head on a human armor that's been chiseled into the chest plate, and that's because, well, we stand up straight and you see their chest. Not so much with the Char. They're always like this. And I started doing these designs, and the more I got through them, the more I was kind of like, something's missing. This isn't reading well. These guys are slightly dorky. I mean, I don't know what's going on here. I knew in my head what I wanted out of that design. I had pictured these sort of like horizontal blades that, you know, there's just going to be vicious, and it's like, oh, this is going to be really intimidating to be next to. But that's not what's reading with these little, you know, like, these are like the spikes that they put on buildings to keep the birds off on the top, so not working out for me. And this, I mean, it always feels like, you know, everything's just hyped up too much, and you kind of want to just pull it down a little bit and make it feel like it's less constricting, like he's in a girdle. Certainly the beggar, I mean, I had pictured this long poncho that was part hood, and it kind of was like, you know, it was very, you know, I guess it's slightly, I would say, you know, like the old school Robin Hood, not old school, okay, the middle school Robin Hoods, where, you know, he was in disguise, and so it was just this long cape cloak that would, you know, it's like all on the split the floor, and that doesn't read there. You're not seeing that. So I was like, okay, what the heck is going on here? Because I know I have design in zero pose, but this is killing me here. The char don't stand up. They don't. It doesn't fit on him like this, and I had a harder time trying to discern what details were important, because it's not the chest, it's the back and the shoulders for the char. So from here, I scrapped most of this, or at least as this presentation was for here. And I was like, okay, what do we gotta do? Fine, if they're gonna be leaning over, let them lean over. And so here, this is where I went in and took a 3/4 view in their normal idle pose. I was like, if this is how you're going to encounter the char, then this is what you're going to see. In which case, I need to be able to have a visual to wrap my head around what the geometry of these pieces are going to look like on a hunched over figure. And so for the char, their cultural thing is that they have their love of metal, but they also have a love of leather. But the leather isn't refined. It isn't hand tooled like the Norn would do. It isn't, you know, really intricate jewelry detail as much as the Asura would do. A lot of it is hammered, because a lot of it, you know what, they wanted to do its job. They want to do what they command it to do and get it out the door. Now, that's not to say that they don't have any refined and more, you know, more polished pieces. They do. But if you're going to be, you know, if you're going to be, you know, a miner, and you're dealing with this huge, you know, fire forges and everything like this, that's screaming stuff into your face and hot and wonderful, I would have to say that, first of all, he's not, even though he's made of fur, I realize he could be combustible in front of the big forge. I get this. Okay, this is fantasy, right? But I figured it's hot, all right? He's not going to wear much clothes, and he's going to be good enough that, you know, okay, he might be a little singed. That's fine. He's tough. He'll walk it off. but a lot of his details were in looking at the different kinds of boiler, plates in the engines, and all the different the grading and the cages that would be on these fire furnaces that they deal with. And so I said, well, of course, he thinks that's what's cool. This is what he loves in life, and so why wouldn't he augment tools and parts of his outfit to reflect this? But also, this is going to be a very big visual that immediately starts describing, okay, well, he's not a farmer. He gets the job done, he deals with fireplates, he deals with stuff like that. Same thing in getting over through the merchant. I mean, this guy looks like he's probably dealing with the black market. He doesn't have to pay for half of his stuff, this. We don't know where he gets his merchandise, but we don't care because he sells the good stuff. In which case, he's going to kind of like pack rat all of this on with different satchels and boxes and trunks that he's just strapped onto his body, because you know what? You keep the goods where you find it so that nobody's stealing it. I mean, getting into the character mindset of what these races do, I would think that, that's where the love of really describing these characters comes out. For anyone who would be interested in wearing stuff like this, is like, well, yeah, if I'm a merchant, I want to look like a merchant. I don't just want to look like someone who's average who happens to be, oh yes, well, I'm selling something. Well, you can't tell. You need to be able to tell, looking at them, what their profession is, what they're doing, what their interests might be. In which case, like when we get over to like the fisherman and the beggar, okay, see, that's the poncho I was talking about. And finally, I got it long enough and all tattered enough and impressive enough that I was able to wrap my head more around what those forms were doing and how it would hang and how it would present itself to the character. That just made it, I think, a little bit more successful on the body, whereas I was really struggling trying to get that to look the same way when he was standing up. Same thing with the fisherman. I'm still trying to bring in details that really describe what his profession is. And it's like, this is a cat going fishing, all right? Do you think they're going to have a little pole with a little bitty hook on the end? No, he's got a freaking harpoon that's wrapped around his head, And it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, there's a bunch of, like the old boxers, the Roman boxers and stuff like that have a lot of, if you start reading in on what happened with their mitts and how that they would actually put sticky stuff all there and then like grind broken glass and all kinds of shard stuff, and then that's what they box with to your face. And I was like, well, okay, I can see that maybe not necessarily this is applicable for a fisherman, but the fact that he's dealing with a lot of really sharp. I mean, if he's fishing with a harpoon, I can imagine. I mean, shark skin, it'll rip you up. I mean, it's got all these little serrated edges that's in the leather. He's probably dealing with things with teeth. So I mean, at some point, I would expect that he would want to kind of secure the pads just a little bit. So I mean, that's one of the things that I tried to work into it. This guy would be wearing gloves as part of his profession, because I mean, you're dealing with all kinds of really sharp objects and unknown objects in the murky deep. See, those are the blades I was talking about. They look a lot better here, whereas before, I mean, it wasn't as impressive. It didn't really read well, and I really wanted the plates of the leather that he put together to hang sort of like blades off of him as well. So every little detail kind of describes what this engineer would do. And this was before we actually announced the engineer profession. It's just more of like, okay, he's into the technical aspects. He's the one that's taking care of all of these, the sort of a mastermind behind coordination and coming up with some of these innovations that they're designing. And I just wanted everything, all the details to be functional. So he's got his little utility belt going on. And still, well, he's in charge and he wants to make sure you don't forget this. So yes, the chief has 3 blades and he knows how to use them. Same thing with, like, for example, ArenaNet guard. Just coming up with what their ranking system would be. And here's one of the only couple examples where I actually did use some of the ranking system going onto the chest, even though you don't see it as much, just because I knew that it would hang down and you'd be able to see the ropes of authority once he got into position. But it was a way. It had shapes that would read regardless of whether he was standing up or leaning over. So really trying to keep in his and same thing with the Iron Legion and so forth. That at a glance you can tell which one is running the pack, but also, you know, this really does describe, and it still looks good when he's in his idle or when he's fighting and when he's, you know, not standing straight up. Now, yes, Ash Legion, Blood Legion. This was actually right before I designed the female char too. We really wanted to make sure that, graphically speaking, oppressively speaking, that the female and the male did not have that much of a discrimination. I mean, the female's got to be just as tough. The female's just got to be, you know, just as fierce and be as imposing as what the male char is. Originally, I had tried to see about tapering her down just a little bit, but this felt like, okay, well, if two of them are in there, she might be scrappier, but she's probably not as strong as what the male, you know, his presence is doing. So this is an old design, but you could see a lot of the elements that stayed in the female char's new design. How many of you guys know what I'm talking about here? You all know. Okay. Yeah, she's, you know, just she's a sleek down version of him. She doesn't have breasts, made sure, and but she's just as fierce, and her claws are actually bigger than his. Just by a little bit, I made them a little bit bigger. So I mean, she's just going to be just as impressive and just as fierce in the battlefront as the male is going to be, and that was definitely by design. But here's, you know, an example of what, since they don't really have the structure as a female human would do, they wear a lot of the male clothing because, I mean, they don't really care necessarily about masculine and feminine, and they care about what gets done on the field, you know, what you're going to do on the battlefield and so forth. But you know, the idea is that, you know, there should be some outfits that do say a little bit more femininity, of something that does say, you know, say I'm a woman, hear me roar, I guess. So yeah, I mean, that was where that design came from. Some of these have been made, some of these haven't been made. But once I got to back it up, no, the other way, thank you. Once I got here, these guys felt more ferocious to me. These guys felt like they could take care of business. And I started looking back at the Norn that I did. And I was like, oh dear Lord, something's going wrong here. They didn't, just because, by the way, for those of you who model, just because I got the concept art hunched over, that didn't free us from still having to translate it to be able to actually produce. So I still had to go back to my original design standing up, but at least I knew that once they got into their idle pose, once they got, you know, leaned over, they would still look, they would read well. And when we made these outfits, we made sure that once they got into that pose, that we looked at the 3/4 concept first, and then just took, you know, supplementary notes off of the other things. But yeah, this is still, you know, instructions to be able to make sure that these designs all read straight. But I look back at the there. No, stop. It's Kaae. It's catching on the fabric. Huh. So I started going back into the Norn, realizing that I wanted the still char. Are we Norn sketchy again? That one?
Yeah.
Thank you. This is where I started going back into a lot of designs that I felt just weren't as robust as I would have liked them to be for the Norn. Like for example, this is a hunter. I kind of like the female. I thought she was really cool. And, you know, a little bit of an Artemis vibe. But the male just didn't really exude the same confidence. And so for him, I started doing other designs. And for a lot, particularly the shaman, I had some problems. When we get to the bear, this didn't really say, hey, I'm a grizzly bear, I'm going to rip your head off. So I started saying, okay, well, you know, let's get something a little bit more robust here. Let's really say that, you know, I am proud to be a bear shaman. This is my totem. These are the animals that I'm following. These are the animals that I love, and this is my passion in life. I mean, this is what the Norn are all about. Not the same vibe when you see these. I didn't like it either. Same thing with lumberjack. And so here's another example. I think somebody touched on it. That in designing a sort of a graphic direction, you want to be able to play with symbols. the big thing is like, okay, you come up with a merchant, and just like with the char, what does merchant say? Okay, satchels and inventory, but also probably, you know, more fine detail. They, you know, they wear their best wear. They exude a confidence in details that say, I know exactly how to get exactly what you want, but it's going to cost you. And so for the norm, I mean, to really read the profession, you want to come up with similar symbols. And for one, okay, if you're going to do a lumberjack, these weren't made, but if you're going to do a lumberjack, then yes, the suspenders. But how do you translate the suspenders of a lumberjack and like the flannel into Guild Wars? Because we're dealing with, you know, fantasy logic here with real world. So I was trying to bring in that kind of, and I think I cheated a little for the fact that it's dyed red. I understand, but it could be dyed any color. But I was really trying to bring in the straps, and since, you know, the norm was very big on the hand-tooled and the little details and the clasps and so forth, I thought I could get away with regular suspenders. But this still didn't feel, you know, competent. It didn't feel like this is an expert in the field. It felt like, you know, well, student work. So, you know, they got a redesign too, and this just goes to show, and same with fishermen and so forth, this goes to show some of the designs that got retooled. I mean, from a farmer, where I was using thatched reed, a little bit slightly more peasanty, but, you know, I mean, it's actually hard to get thatch to do that. Versus when I originally started looking at them and thinking, okay, this is a farmer, they're strong. If you've ever had if you've ever known anybody that lives on a farm or has to deal with farm equipment or deal just like running the farm is a lot of hard work. You're basically, you are your own plow horse. I mean, you are taking care of business. You're having to really, thank you, Stefan. You're having to really, you know, be very strong and competent. So I started thinking of Clydesdales. And if you start looking at what their tack looks like, their bridles, the straps that they use for their pulling equipment, their saddles and so forth, I started bringing in some of these details, including, you know, the buckles and some of the D-rings and so forth, and use that as a symbol in order to sort of flesh out what this race could do. So from here, it went to, is that Norn 2? Norn 2. Haha. It's big. So for farmers, what was, okay, well, this gun, once we started seeing some of this design, I mean, my lead said, oh, that looks like a blacksmith. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, I can see that too. And some of their chaps actually comes from a farrier's chaps, so the pants that you would use for blacksmith and so forth. This is where I got a lot of the design of sort of this protective thing. So yeah, okay, it works as a blacksmith. They're just as strong as functional, in which case, okay, well now I need a farmer. And so I figured that these again would be very independent and proud people. They would be, you know, they would be the ones that would mend and darn all of their clothes. They would be the ones that were artisans. They would have, you know, a very proud and unique culture that was probably handed down in family generations. So yes, they probably have little details and trims and cultural aspects that would show off of these the clothing for them. So that's where some of the farmer came from. Lumberjack, yeah, he's going to have big spikes and a big chain around him. Of course he is. He's a Norn. But if you notice the climbing gear, climbing the trees, I always wanted this one to maybe. I really liked that little top, but I didn't get made. And then, like for example, the fisherman trainer. I figured, okay, well we've got, you know, use their lures, use the the bits of metal, the bling that they would have with that, and of course he's bringing his own fishing net and so forth. It's these kind of details that come together and really start describing the race. So, so nobody hit in the farm. These have been out. These images have been out. Nobody guessed. Oh my god. Clan of the Cave Bear. Who knows? Yeah. Okay. So well, bear. Okay. But she's not a bear, is she? Who knows? She was Scratch. Remember, she was Scratched by the mountain lion. Okay, look. Nobody's guessed it. It's been out for years. I hide these things. I do. Anyway. So that's the norm. And like I said, they got overhauled because the Char showed them up. And so, all right, well, we can't have that. Norn got to be able to beat up a Char too, just like the Char got to beat up Norn. So we went through with the new designs. And so there. Well, yeah, okay. So you've seen these guys. You've seen them around. These are a lot of what we make up for a lot of the villager, and and in the towns and so forth. Different designs. I think you've seen her. She was dyed a different color. She was dyed gold, and she was in one of my screenshots. And you've seen him on a waterfall in the original intro video, stuff like that. So from here, let's go to Safari. So back in the day, and years ago, before we had the new design, we had what was the old design that you guys know about. That was the ones that are a little bit more fairy, or not fairy-like, but fae-like and elf-like. Also, very young and very cute looking. Before that was chosen, we had asked all of the designers and all of the artists to try to come up with a lot of their own designs, ideas. You've probably seen a lot in the wiki. I mean, we've had all those different concept pieces out there. I wanted to show this. This looks fine. So in 2008, this was the very first one. I gave her a little. I gave her a little Shirley Temple kind of curly hair and so forth, and this was the dandelion dress. And a lot of their the design does read more like a plant person, but back then what we wanted for the race was not the same as what we really wanted to be able to. We had different requirements, and being a little bit more planty was not among them. We really wanted to make sure they were beautiful. We really wanted to make sure that they were noble. We really wanted to make sure that they were fae-like. And so this was voted down at the time. But then when I came up, when we all got together after all the iterations, I mean we had concerns internally as much as you guys did externally. And so I raised my hand as like, hey, can I give it another shot? And then, it's really great that ArenaNet gave me the opportunity to. I mean, I think that's really cool that, I'm not a lead. So they let me, have my go and have an idea. And so I started thinking, and here are the very first designs that I was just hand scratching out to try to come up with the idea. And I deal a lot with shapes in my head, but my hand scratching just basically, I mean, in my head I see the shapes, but as I go down, they're just really, scribbles and so forth. But it was when I got to about here, and you could see some of where, the leaves were going around the shoulder that you've seen in some of the screen grabs. And this is where a lot of these, little scribbles in the anatomy started really playing to that. I can't do it here. We're trying to come up with some of the designs for the outfit. I know it's hard to read, but some people have shorthand. This is my shorthand. And then in coming up with some of the sculpts of what the normal map and what the body looks like underneath. So I'm kind of rushing. You guys have read the article, so you know what's going on with that. So I'm not going to try to repeat a lot of this, but I'd like to get to quick Q&A really quickly because they're telling me. Oh, and the last thing is too, I started coming up with different designs, and this is exactly one of the other troubles is that goes with designing in zero pose. Once I got to this design, I thought that was actually pretty cute. It was like a little corsety, a little slick and stuff like that. And then these were two leaves that sort of started from the center and then crossed over and then gracefully draped around the arm. Designing this from the side view looked horrible. Once I started actually modeling it, it completely fell apart. And so it wasn't until I started, going back to the drawing board and coming up with the different designs. I mean, it just didn't work in the shoulder. It looks great from the front, but it looked horrible from the side. It was boring. So once I took into account that the sleeve needed to really be able to read from the side and from 3/4 and so forth, that's when the silhouette started coming into view, where I got the sleeve to curve around, and then I started really playing with having this wings and having this really big appearance. So that's where that went. In which case, if you guys want questions, then I should stop talking now and let you guys start asking stuff. Is there anything in particular you guys want to know? I could just call out. If you scream it out, I can hear you, or we've got the microphone up front.
We'll give the microphone.
Okay.
noticed you were talking about with the designing the female char in particular. You said you wanted them to look just as strong, just as fierce as the males.
Yes.
I'm slightly curious. I'm not sure it's the same case with the Norn. I'm wondering why the different approach with that race.
The Norn, I mean, they are a beautiful race as well, and they're also very individual with how that they would. It's a matter of chosen aesthetic. I mean, the Char as a female race, I mean, they don't really. I don't know if Laura's going to disagree with me on this, but it's like they don't really acknowledge it. It's like it's there's no difference. It's like I'm just as good as the guys on the field, and they don't really pay attention to their femininity whatsoever. Now the Norn would be a little bit different because they are just as competent as warriors on the field, but they're a woman on the field. They'll take care of business on the field. They want to look nice too. So it's a matter of then blending both of them to be both beautiful and competent, whereas the Char really just almost cared mostly about being competent. So they didn't really care about the details for that as much.
Great, thanks.
In the front. One more.
Can I bring up my reference question again?
Okay, which one?
That was the one about when you're working on reference, and reference is the most important stage of the artist development. How do you not have the bad ideas and get rid of the ones that just don't?
The bad ideas. How do I not do the bad ideas?
Kristen, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, that's what I was just doing. So in coming up with these ideas, how do I know which one's a good idea and the bad idea? Well, I talked a bit about on that on the Norn, where it's, once I had achieved what I wanted, the aggression out of the Char, I went back and redesigned the Norn. Here's an example of a bad idea. It was very cool at the time. Anyway, no, no, it wasn't. I don't know where the armadillo came from, but it did, and it came from someplace dark. I was really just trying to come up with, I thought it was really cool to have this sort of slatted leather look all the way down, but this is before anything. I mean, this was even trying to figure out, like, day one, I was like, okay, we're going to do this thing called Guild Wars 2. What does that mean? This is before we knew about light, medium, and heavy armor. This is way before anything else. And so you look at this, and okay, it's got elements that might work. This might be cool with, how the flare of the metal might work. It might be cool to have this bling down the front. It might be cool, the sort of idea of being able to have this, serrated edge or this plate-like thing down there. But overall, is this something that you're going to spend time trying to get? Is this cool? Exactly. It sucked. So we didn't make it. Had another idea too. Let's see, no, not you. And so here's, at this point, we don't even know what we're going to need. We know absolutely nothing about what we want. So I just started going hog wild, just showing ideas. A couple of these ended up getting into the game. I think these two. I really like this sort of equestrian, sort of slightly, gentleman's musketeer boot, and a little bit more of the pirate sense. But I mean, some of these I don't know where the little, the Eskimo toga things went to. Yeah. Anyway. And so it's just basically, flirting around with some of this stuff, coming up with ideas. I liked this idea for this sort of more kimono robe with, pearls down the side and this sort of sleeve. This one's pretty cool too, but once we come up with, the scope of what we want, this one at the end actually, it was made, that's in the game. But once we got to the end of all this, it's like, okay, what grabs your attention? What are you more interested in? And when you have a whole line, and not just my work, but all of the other artists that are going to have a line of their concepts too, this is where you're going to start being able to say, okay, well this is cool or this is not cool. This one was one of my favorites because I really wanted a monocle in the game. I like details, I do. and to be able to, it's like, okay, this is a character that's going to look good wielding a gun. So you got to accessorize. Looks good with any gun. Let's see, this guy's in the game. Yeah, I like the split sleeve. It's my favorite stuff. And I was trying to experiment with different kinds of leather. So this is fish leather. Yes, it does exist. Not in the game, but I wanted a tartan. We don't like armadillo. This is an example of overkill. I thought this was really cool, but as soon as I tried to accessorize with it and still put fur, and there's a lot of other requirements, this is too many ideas in one outfit. Simplify, don't do this. This actually is, this is in the game too. You'll see this in the very first demo over at Gamescom, you know, a couple years ago. This is there. It's just running around somewhere. They didn't let me do the hat. They said it was too modern. I was like, yeah, we know about this. We know about this. This, sort of in the game, kind of. It was actually reinterpreted into something. It doesn't look anything like this, but if you start looking at some of the other things that are around, you'll start seeing the shapes. Because remember, I think it's shapes. Also overkill, but had some elements that were kind of okay. But this is a little disturbing more than anything. So, yeah. Okay, it's not like a short amount of work went into this. I mean, I did spend hours on it, right? But, you know, at some point you just, okay, I'm sorry this didn't get in the game. It was one of my favorites. It was so fun to paint. But no, he didn't get in there. I think I was watching a lot of Dark Crystal at the time. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, more questions, because I'm out of images now, and we need more questions in front.
I remember in one of the articles on the website about color, are all the colors going to be valuable onto all of the items? Will they look the same on every armor type? Because I remember, I think there was like some items have to be more natural.
Like looking at her. Yes. So the 400 colors that I've designed, that's largely really just concerned with cloth. Now, every single color I've designed, you will be able to apply to every material. So you'll be able to apply to cloth, metal, and leather, but it will change according to what the material is. So when it's on leather, I tried as best as I could to be able to make sure that it read more naturally. It's still hard when it's like really pink, but I did my best. And for metal too, you wanted to be able to have it so that it was a lot more, desaturated in some cases, but still be able to, if you couldn't have fire engine red, I mean, what's the point of living? So where I could, I tried to give it copper. I mean, copper is a very bright orange. It's copper, right? So, within reason, the natural colors I really tried to keep in there, but mostly, a lot of them were going to be more desaturated. So yes, it does change. But when you see the 400 colors and all the 400 names, think of it as cloth first, and then it just augments as it goes along to whatever's being applied to.
When you're actually starting out and stuff like that, I mean, are you seeing spec sheets coming through saying, oh, use this type of material, this type of stuff? Or it's kind of more open-ended and then
the question is did I give a laundry list of exactly what I was supposed to design? Essentially, did we have spec sheet for these kind of materials? More in Guild Wars 1, things were more tied to region or a particular material or exactly where it had to be. But we don't really have so much that. It's really light, medium, and heavy, or if it's a particular reward that has to closely tie in with that design. Yes, we do have some instructions, but it was left a lot more open-ended for us. So we weren't as restricted. Like again, it's just make it look badass. Yes.
With some of the designs you've been doing, did you ever design something and then look at it and go, "There's no way we're going to fit this on a texture map"?
Yes, I design things I can't possibly build all the time. Unfortunately. Well, see, that's the thing, is because it kind of ties into a little bit of my OCD, because I want to try to make it work, and in a lot of cases I have. Because the texture sheet, to me, as you lay it out with all the UV space, it's actually sort of like Tetris, to be able to work it out. I'm sorry if I'm getting too technical with that, but to try to get everything to fit on the texture sheet, it has to be rotated and scaled and fit exactly as it is. So I try my best, and in some cases, yeah, the design just won't work, and we have to design what's within the means that will look good in the game, but also next to all of the other armors that they're going to be running around with. So we have that.
What size maps are you guys using for your texture?
1024. Yes. In the very back.
What was your inspiration or reasoning behind creating town clothing for NPCs? Because I noticed in the original Guild Wars, I'd walk around with a warrior and be like, I wish I had Mesmer clothing, because they have the most, fancy looking clothing out there.
Gwyn thought that too. That I was like, I want to be a Mesmer just because they have all the best outfits. Well, that was in GW1 we didn't really have the option of wearing just regular clothing. We were actually, really, it was mostly the armors that of any one profession that any character got to wear. So in GW2, we thought, particularly a lot with all the hero armor, you know, it's like, hey, that's a really great armor, but we want to be able to wear that too, right? Well, so with that kind of philosophy, that's why we started saying, okay, well, sometimes I want to dress like a cook. And so we wanted to be able to give clothing options that sort of allowed that. It's like, you know, you're off hours, you know, you're not off slaughtering Drake all the time. And so, yeah, just we didn't want to deny the player any ability to wear something of what they wanted to. So as much as was absolutely possible in the game, we tried to make that available for the player. There was a question over here somewhere? Yes?
Your title is what then at ArenaNet? Like character model or character designer?
Character artist, I think, is technically what it is. Technically, I mean, my business card just says artist. We kind of really have a flat system. Yeah, we have producers and leads, but it's like if anybody in particular has ideas or really has passion about something, I mean, we try to listen to everybody's ideas. So there isn't really so much a hierarchy. It's not like, you know, oh, you're a texture artist, you're never going to be able to do anything. Well, if you show that you can, you know, do something that you really are passionate about and everybody else agrees it's really cool, yeah, they're going to give you a shot to take it, you know, by the lead and try to go from there. So it's like, yeah, it's really fortunate that ArenaNet is very open to allowing inspiration from whoever is at the company. I think a lot of the articles you guys can really read that, you know, it's like everybody you talk to, from QA to writing to audio to everybody, they love what they're doing. And so you definitely listen to everybody. Oh, we're one-stop shop in the character room. So from the character to modeling to texture to bug fixing, yes, we try our best. We get it in the game. On the green shirt, please.
Setting aside the metal bikini, it sounds like your job is to put clothes on the characters. Was there a point where you were like, loincloth or less clothing? Take it off?
Well, we always try, you know, underwear. That has to happen. Otherwise, we change our rating. So, yes, well, our lead is for at least particularly the humans and also the Norn. He was in charge of really designing, you know, what those body types are, and just for the most convenient shape in the game is human. So if you're going to do world armor, you design on human first, and then you kind of transfer it to all the races, and then just try to make proportionally that it fits. So it's like we've just always, for production's sake, and because he would set the standard, we would take what he started from and then build on top of it for a lot of the outfits. For difference, for, you know, somebody else made the Char, somebody else made the Asura, you know, I made the Savari bodies and so forth. So it's not always necessarily the same person, but for the human ones, you know, my lead did. Aaron Coberly, he does gorgeous things. And so yeah, everybody, but we build from something when you're just trying to produce the sheer amount of textures or the sheer amount of armors that we're trying to do. Any more questions? Yes, in front. Armors that have a legacy from Guild Wars 1 to Guild Wars 2. Other than the Hall of Monuments, I don't know specifically. I mean, we can't use the same assets. It's built completely differently now. I actually don't know if there's so much that's in the game. I don't know. Yes.
So I just have a question. So once you kind of figured out that you want to do the armadillo armor, how long does it take you to go from like to sketch that out, to put that into like a first draft, to paint it?
How long does it take to produce a bad concept? You can spend so many hours doing it. No, I understand what you're basically one. So from start to finish, it really just depends on the inspiration. Some concepts are easier than others. I mean, especially when I have a very clear idea in my head, then I could, you know, if I'm building it myself and I know I'm building it myself, I'll just do a hand scratch like you guys saw, and then I'll start building. I don't even, like all of the Savari, I mean, a lot of people had to go on faith with some of what I've been doing because I've been building most of the faces. It's like I know in my head what I'm doing and I start building it. There's not much concept art for it. I didn't, you know, you saw the concept art I did for her. It's a scribble. I just built her. So depending, and we all kind of have that, you know, ability in the office is if we have a clear idea, you know, our managers, our leads know exactly what our capabilities are. So it's like, okay, here's your idea. Yeah, I know where you're going to go for it, because or going with it because I know what you can do. Sure, go ahead. You know, sometimes we only have to show a scribble. If it's going for somebody else to build it, then, you know, that's when you have to get more in detail so that you can, you know, fully explain what your idea is, and it gives them enough to build from. Yes?
Do you have a good choice of plate armor? Like a good wide variety where a warrior will look like full metal tank?
Yes, we have, I mean, because that's all part of heavy gear, so everything in that category is going to look heavy. The question was, do we have a full choice of plate armor? Yeah, we have a lot of things to choose from, but it's all in that category, so you'll be able to choose, you know, anything that's within that weight class. And yeah, we made sure that the weight class feels like the weight class, so yes. In the back.
Do you usually model in ZBrush right away to get the sculpt down and then bring it to a lower poly in 3ds Max or Maya?
Do we sculpt in ZBrush first and then go to Maya? Some of us do. But I'm more of a pixel pusher myself, so I like seeing a lot of the dimension first and be able to rotate around it, and then I eventually go and I'll flesh it out. So I'll do like a rough draft model, and then I'll drag that into ZBrush and do some of the sculpting ideas for it, and if that kind of breaks where some of the tessellation is going, then I'll you know, update my model and bring it back in and sketch. So it's kind of a little back and forth. I used to just do one-stop shop. It was like I model first, and then, you know, that was it, and then I sculpt, and then I texture, and boom, that's it. But now I'm starting to go back and forth and try to sketch more. And then, yes.
There is I didn't really get into it. Remember there was a big thread on Guru a while back around the female armor design for Guild Wars 1, and especially with Kara, the amount of basically chainmail ninja raids in the Sonic Square. That's pretty much what it is. Just look it up, guys. Have you ever like designed an armor, you know, getting into it, just gonna look and go, if she wears this, she's going to die? Have you ever just kind of realized that there's only so much of a sexy aspect you can put on armor?
We summon meteors from the sky. Flaming ball meteors. Or like ice storms and stuff like that. I would really think that if somebody can actually be surrounded in flame, it doesn't matter what they're wearing. So, I mean, we're a fantasy game. I mean, we try our best to make sure that there are options so that if somebody wants to be more realistic, we definitely try to make sure that there's something that you could do there. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, it's like you're dealing with magic, and you're dealing with people who, you know, call this of their own accord, of their own anatomy, of their two hands. And it's like, you know, okay, I don't think I'm going to need to wear a hazmat suit if, you know, I can call fire from my hands. I mean, at that point, you know, at some point you do kind of have to suspend disbelief just because it is a fantasy game. But we try to make sure that, you know, players can play the way they want, and that they all have variety, and they all have, you know, something that they could say, it's like, all right, this feels good for my character. This is what I identify with, and this makes sense to me. So we definitely try our best to have that huge variety, but yeah, I mean, balls of fire from the sky.
I agree with that. I'm referring to, like, if you're supposed to be like a knight and you have like your stomach exposed, even if you have balls of fire, so take this one nut, even the best made, if they have an open exposed area, it's still stabbed, it's still gonna die.
Yeah,
I mean,
that gets into mechanics though that are a little bit more fine, you know.
It's mostly to the point of basically, if you ever just looked at armor and realized that no matter how awesome you want to make it look, does it just stop? Does it just go beyond function?
Yeah, I mean, some designs are beyond function. Some of the designs are just, you know, to look good. But we, you know, like I said, we try our best. And yeah, I mean, you're going to have it. It's okay if you have that exposed skin, and you know, a cleaver will take that arm right off. I mean, yes, if you want to role play it like that, yes, that could be. But just make sure you pick an armor that doesn't have any explosion, you know, exposure. You know, we'll try our best. Yes.
By any chance, let's say we're a sorcerer game.
Okay.
Can we choose a heavy armor skin to apply to our?
No, whatever weight class you're in is what you're going to be choosing from. So you won't be able to wear anything heavy if you're light. Yes.
I was wondering, with the body types that they've got going into character creation, you know, where you have like a guy that's pretty thin and a guy that's really sort of beefy.
Yes.
Does that cause any issues with the armors that you're designing, like making them fit with different body
Some
types?
do. I mean, most of it, with the range that we have, a lot of it does fit within, you know, it'll just scale to the body type that you choose. But once you get to a certain point, when we can't have entirely huge people, in, you know, or like a huge big beer gut or something, or a keg gut, because it starts clipping through the armor itself, and you'll have some functional details. So we try to make it big enough that you can, you know, have your variety and choose your character type, but there are some limitations with how the armor fits itself. Yes, that's how you first.
It's a quick question. So, kind of, when you design armor, is there any possibility, like,
able to take parts off and still have the stats of what that armor is. I mean, if you wear the armor or you don't kind of thing. So let's in the back.
Actually, just one short one and a more in-depth one. Will there be an ability to toggle on and off your helmet? And
the helmet question was asked earlier. I believe so. I mean, because we were able to do that in GW1. I mean, in my mind, my frazzled brain right now from con season, you know, I can't remember the UI, but I would be very surprised if you didn't have that ability.
And then with the Sylvari, I noticed that a lot of their designs are like very terrestrial-based plants. Are there any like armors that are like aquatic-based plant designs? Like
well, since they really came from the the pale tree, it is a lot more foresty type stuff. I mean, that's not to say that we don't have designs that will be more aquatic, as your question was. You know, we do our best to make sure that there's a lot of different variety of types of armor and types of plants, so it's just not all leaf. So that's why you see a lot of the bark stuff. You started seeing, more the succulent plants. You see some, some of the harder edged, more gourd type stuff. I mean, nut shells and so forth. So I mean, we really try to bring in a lot of different kinds of stuff. Oh, are we short? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, guys.
It's almost time. I would like to thank Kristen. It's been an amazing battle. Thank you, everyone.
It was interesting.
So if there's fashion discussion you want to, what you think. And we're gonna have to leave the room, but I imagine maybe you want to hang out and answer more questions outside.
Yeah, I can ask some more questions outside if you guys have anything burning that you want to know about. So yeah.